Edward W. said, Orientalism. Immerse yourself in the world of Orientalism, as author Edward W. said explores how the Occident has portrayed and influenced the Orient throughout history. This book summary will take you on a journey through the complex web of representations, stereotypes, and power dynamics that have shaped not only perceptions but also actual events and policies. Discover how modern Orientalism continues to shape popular imagination, academia, and government policy in the United States to this day.
The creation of the East's exotic image. The Orientalism theory emerged from Napoleon's expedition to Egypt in 1798. It defines the Orient and shapes the Western perception of the Middle East, Asia, and the Far East. This Western lens presents the East as exotic and unfamiliar, with irrational and erotic people. These beliefs extended to travel journals, newspapers, and scientific publications. Harems became emblematic of Eastern eroticism, and passion was considered uncontrolled. The civilization was considered too backwards to be reasoned with. Western traits were directly opposed to Eastern traits. Orientalism and its negative impact. Orientalism, originally designed to improve our understanding of the Orient, instead became a tool to reinforce subjugation and domination in areas under scrutiny. The science was driven by economic and political interests in the form of the Egyptian expedition, and scholars spawned from this expedition became educators and advisors to colonial powers. These Orientalist scholars were able to establish themselves as authorities over the people in the Orient, by translating ancient hieroglyphs and revealing archaeological digs. Napoleon even enlisted local imams to interpret the Quran in a way that suited French interests. Consequently, Orientalism could gather support for French occupation and establish itself as an authority. Thus, Orientalism, which initially seems to be a positive study, yielded negative results instead. Rethinking Orientalism. The concept of Orientalism, as a Western perspective on the East, has been disrupted by several factors in the 19th and 20th centuries. Firstly, the experiences of writers and social scientists no longer matched up with what was once recorded about the Orient, leading to a shift in understanding. Secondly, anticolonialist and independence movements in the East challenged Western views and gave the Orient more power to assert its own identity. Orientalists responded to this challenge in three ways: continuing to study the East as a static object, adapting research to the changing world, or giving up the study of the East entirely. The impact of these responses has shaped the understanding of the East in the modern world. Expanding and shaping the Orient. The book discusses how the West responded to the resistance movements in the East by expanding the geographical scope and entering into dialogue with the Orient. This expansion was facilitated by trade development, travel writings, scientific reporting, and exoticized utopian imagery. Additionally, there was an attempt to shape the Orient through dialogue, allowing for more open-mindedness and communication. However, the resulting findings were still used to advance the West's colonial and economic presence. The efforts of Orientalism in the 18th and 19th centuries are explored. The flaws of Orientalist linguistics. Orientalist scholars believed that the best approach to comprehend the culture of the Orient was by categorizing its inhabitants according to language. Sylvestre de Sacy was among the first to pursue this approach, using language research to gain insight into the mentality of different cultures. However, his method was flawed, as he filtered Oriental languages through his French perspective, failing to consider linguistic variations within the Orient. His successor, Ernest Renan, continued this work but diverged by connecting language with race, ultimately reinforcing the idea of European superiority over Orientals. Additionally, Renan developed an Oriental stereotype, stating that their language hindered their progress compared to the West. The flaws in de Sacy and Renan's work demonstrate how Orientalist linguistics perpetuated harmful stereotypes rather than providing a genuine understanding of the Orient. Immersing in Oriental life, the categorizations obscuring reality. The Orientalists of the 19th century immersed themselves in local cultures to research the Orient. Edward William Lane is an example, dressing in local clothing styles and studying Oriental women's lives. However, the categorizations developed by Orientalists clouded the nuances of the cultures, making it difficult to observe each culture's complexity. Categories lumped variations and diversity within individuals, families, and cultures under the same umbrella, obscuring their numerous differences. Exceptions to broad categories were seen as transgressions from general trends and not worth spending much time on. The categorizations created by Orientalists made it challenging to observe each culture's complexity. Rise of Anticolonialism. The turn of the 20th century ushered in a new era in which the East began to assert itself against European dominance. Anti-colonial movements, such as the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and the Egypt revolutions of 1919 and 1952, changed relations between the Orient and the West. The concept of the nation-state became a model for colonies to emulate, and nationalism was employed by colonies against their colonizers. The West's attitude also shifted towards the East after the two world wars weakened European power and territorial claims worldwide. Colonies became costly and economic strains weakened the hold of colonial powers over the East. The Orient was neither a resource for economic exploitation nor a defeated area to rule over. The resurgence of Orientalism in America. Orientalism did not disappear with the fall of colonialism, it metamorphosed into a new American form with three key characteristics. First, it exists in popular imagination, where Arab stereotypes originated during the oil crisis of 1973. This depiction portrays the East as the uncivilized other, justifying American intervention. Second, Orientalism prevails in American universities through various practices that uphold the belief that Muslims, Arabs, and Islamic cultures are fundamentally opposed to the West. Finally, public policy groups and think tanks use books such as Samuel P. Huntington's Clash of Civilizations to plan foreign policy, resulting in Western government practices based on a theory of cultural differences and clashes. It's time to recognize the resurgence of Orientalism in America, acknowledge its influence, and work towards dismantling it.
Having traversed the historical, cultural, and political landscape of Orientalism, you may find yourself questioning the foundations of many stereotypical representations of the Orient that still persist today. Undoubtedly profound insights that Edward W. Said aims to convey in his work. The evolution of Orientalism, from its birth during Napoleon's invasion of Egypt to its contemporary incarnation in the United States, demonstrates the significant influence it has had on the depiction and subjugation of the Orient. With its continued presence in popular culture, academia, and public policy, the lessons we take from this book will undoubtedly help us question the constructed images of the East and the power dynamics at play, guiding us towards a more accurate and nuanced understanding of our diverse world.